Welcome to the HODLCast. Today we have very special guest, Leon from BitcoinNews.com. Leon, thank you so much for joining us. Can you give a little bit of an introduction, how you got involved in Bitcoin? And
Yeah, sure. First of all, Sasha, thanks for having me. It's always great to have, to be early on. I think it's your 10th episode or something, or pretty early.
Well,
right?
it's actually the 123rd, but I took a big long. No, I took a huge long break
okay.
for about 2 years. So.
Because I was thinking, it sounds familiar, right? So yeah, pleasure to be on, honor. And you know what I want to ask you first is what's your key? I don't want to say, what drugs are you on, but you have this infectious good mood all the time. Well, how do you do it?
It's just fun talking to smart people all the time.
Yeah. Okay. Well, my way to Bitcoin, I think, started with the red pill first. I took the red pill before the orange pill, and just realized, things are off, and it doesn't make sense really what's being told in the media. It's not consistent, it's not coherent. So that was, when I finished school, I was 18, 19, something like that. And then I luckily got in touch with Austrian economics, and because it's so much more consistent and logic, it just makes sense, right? It makes intuitive sense, but it's scientifically way more coherent. And I think that was a good foundation. So I think around 2012, something some guy told me, "Hey, Leon, you are the guy that always sound money, gold and stuff. You should look into Bitcoin." I was like, "Okay, cool," but I didn't get it, and it took me, I think, 14, 15, around that. We were looking at it, and then still took a little bit more time to understand it. Back then, there was not much information there, and yeah, then I started doing the Bitcoin meetup in Malta.
Oh, very nice. And Malta was such a hub for so much crypto activity because they had really favorable regulations, and it just looked like a beautiful place. I think my friend Leia was also doing the news there. I don't know if you came across her in your journey, or it might have been before she was there, that it sounds like. But.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's true. I think there's definitely a lot going on in Malta, and maybe, from a regulatory point of view, I would say not. It's not that. Right now it's not that attractive. I think they do have a good, regulation in regards to capital gain tax. And Malta just as a small country, right? It's super small, 40 kilometers, and all they can do, they can't build an economy there, right? So they do have a little bit of manufacturing stuff, but of course it makes sense for them to have these kind of things in place, offshore, holding structures, stuff like that, big corporate service industry, and yeah.
And when we met in Las Vegas, you said you were kind of a digital nomad. So I guess where did you go from Malta, or how did that happen, and what's it like?
Yeah, Malta is small, so at some point you definitely want to get out again. Usually, so I think there's a saying usually 2 years for someone to come to Malta. Malta is beautiful. I always love to come back. I have so many friends there. It's an amazing place, special place. I really love it. But of course, so I've been traveling since 2018, 19, nonstop almost. And I think now, not super extreme. I have friends that are way more extreme than me. I think I'm now at 50 countries, which is lower average, I think. I think there are 190 countries that you want to visit to be part of these clubs, world's most traveled people. And yeah, it's exciting. I think everyone should do it who can. Of course, there are a few downsides, some things it's harder to do. For example, right now I don't have Bitcoin swag, right? Because I don't have a home studio. If I travel, I didn't figure that out how I could do it better. But it's so much you can learn, and so many things you that just so much opens up to you. I can only say I wouldn't have done it any different. I think it's very good to travel.
Yeah, I've been on a bit of a landlocked situation. I did a lot of traveling. Well, probably not anything like you, but I got around a little bit, to most of the big places in my 20s, and then since I've been here, since COVID started, I haven't been able to leave the United States because I've been applying for this green card, and it ended up it was right at the end of it, and I've been feeling like really I need to get out and go somewhere else. I'm
I
from
thought you look.
Canada, and I
All
came
right, I thought
here,
you look. All right, yeah, okay, yeah.
but then they declined my green card because
Oh,
I left to go get a TN visa renewed when I took a job at Exodus. I had to go to the border of Canada to get a passport stamp to get this visa renewed, and then they declined the green card because they said I abandoned it when I went out to get anyway, it's the whole thing. But now I've got to wait another probably year or two before I can leave again, which it's driving me bananas. But
well, I mean, the good
maybe I
thing
can live
is, yeah,
vicariously through your travels.
you at least you're not in Malta. You know, you have a big country here. I mean, there's so much you could do inside the US. So, come on.
Yeah, that's very true. It doesn't feel too bad because it's actually my favorite country anyway. And with the way the regulations have been in the last little while, I don't know that I would have wanted to go a lot of other places besides Florida anyway.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
what was your impression of that Bitcoin conference we attended in Vegas, the Unconfiscatable?
Well, I mean, first of all, I met you, which is great, right? So, awesome bunch of Bitcoiners. It was my first time. I mean, I followed Tonvei's stuff for quite some time and like knew it, it's solid. But then being there really shows, okay, like it's a solid conference. It's just amazing. And also, I think, yeah, because of COVID, I also had a pretty big deficit of conferencing in general. So like just seeing like, okay, it's coming back. I think in the US it was always better, but like in Europe we had like zero, right? Like nothing, nada. And so
Yeah.
it's just so great. I think it's really what, life is all about, right? Like meeting people in real life. You can't replace it with Zoom and virtual events. It's just bullshit, metaverse and
Yeah.
stuff. But like, what the fuck, and yeah, I really like the energy. I think I heard one guy saying, right? So like, yeah, he just came from some other random, industry event from another industry and is like super boring. Like everyone's like depressed. They don't get it like the normies. And then you go to the Unconfiscatable conference, like only Bitcoin. Everyone's just completely mad.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's people are so positive. People are so intelligent. Like whatever conversation you have, you learn a lot, and everyone has such an interesting view and background, and delivers so much and brings so much, and that's really what it is about for me is seeing how Bitcoin is this gravity and attracts so many smart minds. It's just beautiful.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's so refreshing to get out. Like, I don't know about you, but a lot of my friends or family, like, they don't get it. And then you get
Mm.
around a bunch of
Yeah.
people that have the same values and opinions or similar
Yeah,
anyway.
yeah, it's amazing. Like you talk to people and like, wow, I didn't know someone that would exist like that has this exact point of view. It's amazing. Yeah, yeah, I love it. It's definitely like sort of a parallel universe, but a very good one, a very quality one.
And just like you said, getting a chance to be in person with people is so different than all this stuff on the internet. I saw a tweet went out from the El Salvador president yesterday saying that he was, or maybe it wasn't even yesterday, but I saw it yesterday. They were saying they were coming under a little bit of scrutiny from the U.S., getting some questions, and then someone posted a video on it of these people at a music festival dancing,
Ah,
and at
right.
first it's like one person and then
Yeah,
two person, then they all come running, and
yeah,
it's just it's so cool. And they said
yeah.
like that's the Bitcoin culture.
Yeah, that's funny because so there's an interesting thing here. This video is quite. I know that video from another guy called Derek Sivers, and he's like a successful retired entrepreneur. He wrote a book, Anything You Want. It's about CD Baby, a company started like back in the days, allowing artists to kind of print their own label or like produce their own CD, like back to, when there were CDs. Time
Yeah,
time
yeah.
flies. And then he had a TED talk about exactly that, where he used that image, and I tagged him. Like I think it's exactly that you have to start the party, right? And Bitcoin is this rebel. And first you're like, oh no, so scary. But then, it takes these bullish people, it takes these misfits, really, right? And these maybe even like, not to call extremists, right? But like people that are consequent, right? And they don't like compromises. I don't like compromises too much, right? I'm like, no, I want the real, I want exactly that. And it takes this special breed, I think, to start the party. But as soon as there are two people, right, then, there's social proof, there's more trust, and I think it's happening. The domino stones are falling one after the other. So it's absolutely amazing to observe this. I think that's really that is the trend. I think like the plot is thickening now, right? So this vision or utopia of Bitcoiners, the hyper Bitcoinization and it shows now, right? Like it's getting tighter and tighter, and there's more momentum. I mean, compared to 2017, was there any, I think there was Japan once that like did some regulation, but it was really nothing, and a few news maybe once a year, But now it's just amazing how much traction there is and how much momentum. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. And I think El Salvador's move kind of really did shine a spotlight on it in the global perspective of like, oh, this could be used as as an actual currency for a country rather than, but I don't know if we need to go that far with it, but it just this year, it's really proving its worth too for the people, the truckers in Canada, we saw a really good example. And then right after that, the whole Ukraine-Russia disaster, but Bitcoin is shining as a real freedom mechanism for these people. So it's pretty nice.
I guess it's a long game, right? I mean, the actual renaissance, like, I think that's the long-term vision is to really get off fiat and end this, horrible time period of the high velocity trash economy, like all this distortion in the markets, people living from paycheck to paycheck, that undermines human expression and human creativity, right? And progress, and especially prosperity. Like if people are poor, what can they do, right? They can do nothing. They can't do arts well, they can't do science, they can do nothing. And so I think this is what we're after, to change that and give and just put the economy back where it's supposed to be, with like a completely free market and a free monetary market, right? And then the best money will succeed, and likely it's Bitcoin because it's the hardest money. But that effect will take some more time. But to be honest, I've been to El Salvador. It's already amazing. You can already pay with Bitcoin there, and like there's so much good stuff happening, and people are learning. And I think, and also I think one good, regardless of what happens, maybe just all, I don't know, goes to shit at some point. Who knows? Anything can happen, right? But regardless, the Chivo wallet is often criticized, right? Although I also hear like the government is like trying to fix it and making it better and stuff. But like, so that was one big criticism. Oh yeah, government surveillance, blah blah. Yeah, who fucking cares?
What were the criticisms on it? It's not like a centralized wallet or anything like that.
Well, I think so.
Could they pull the Bitcoin out of it if they wanted to?
Yeah, absolutely. It's also, it's Lightning based. So you can still, that's the point, right? So you can still receive Lightning. I think the criticism was, it's a government venture or public-private venture or something. It's based on Algorand or something, and like the US dollar stuff is surveilled and tracked, and like there was some, I don't know, some stuff going on. But then again, yeah, exactly. So, they can always fall back to another wallet. They can use Wallet of Satoshi, can use Moonwallet. They can also just run their own node and run their own shit, right? So, exactly. And I think, so that's a good point, right? Like, whatever happens to El Salvador, well, at least they will have decentralized unbanking, right? Or like a Lightning-based transaction of rails now. And that won't go away, right? So they can, if there's a currency default or any other crisis, like what happens to Russians now that they're very very having a hard time with their banking, that will never happen to El Salvador, because people can easily switch now. Even though not many people are actively using it. Like I think the Chivo wallet was downloaded, and then people just took $30 and went off. But again, I think it just takes time, right, until people realize the benefits, and like wait until Bitcoin is on 200 grand, right? People will wake up. Oh, I had these $30. Now it's 100, right? So it will change things.
Yeah. And even just the speed of the transactions or like the way of doing it. I remember after doing my first transaction, it was, a while back, but in the US, they didn't have, I moved from Canada to the United States in 2014. And right around then was when I took a job with a Bitcoin ATM company and learned how to do my first transaction. And there was no, in Canada, you can do Interac email transfers. So you can send money to your friends through email, and it was quite easy. And it had been in place for 5 years or so by that point. But in the US, they didn't have Venmo yet or Cash App. So 2014 and 15, I think, were 2 full years where every time I needed to send someone, money to split a bill or just any little thing, it was, I always was just wishing they would take Bitcoin and we could just do a transaction rather than having to like go to the bank or do something to pay them back a different way. And then when Venmo came, I was worried. I was like, oh shoot, is this gonna ruin the need for Bitcoin, because now people can at least like give money to each other over their phone. But and I think Venmo has got a lot of use, but it's obviously nothing like Bitcoin. But what's it like running bitcoinnews.com?
Yeah, honestly, I just thought about that, and I thought, it's kind of like we're a laboratory for designer drugs, and we're trying to create new orange pills, right? So I think, first of all, our it's just so much fun with our team. The team is so amazing. They're all, Bitcoiners. Hiring Bitcoiners is so much fun, or working with Bitcoiners is the best thing you can do, because everyone is so motivated and aligned with the values, right? So you have very easy to now it's like, HR, like hire on values, right? Not just skill. Like it's very important that, people can get along and like, pulling on the same string. And so that's so amazing. Like how everyone just sees the vision, right? And like you don't need to explain much. It just works. So that's just so amazing. And I think what the mission we are on is like, everyone has a unique perspective on it, and I think the orange pill, right? Like everyone needs a kind of different, adjusted to their DNA, a different pill, a different drug, right? And so I think that's what we're trying to do. We're really just like trying to find the right stories to spread Bitcoin to the masses and to also show what's going on. I think our key our core idea is, hey, people are still unaware how far we've come and how much how much is going on already in Bitcoin, right? And the mainstream news is just, full of trash. Sometimes, obviously now it's happening that even CNBC and stuff, they have good stuff or like some stories. But like our platform is really dedicated, Bitcoin only, no distractions, no noise, only signal. We do some clickbait, to be honest. But it's amazing. I didn't thought it could be so much fun, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. And what made you decide to do like Bitcoin only and not cover the other cryptocurrencies?
Yeah, well, I've been Bitcoin only for forever almost, I think. I think, at some point everyone had some exposure here and there and stuff. But yeah, I once you understand Bitcoin, I think, and if you're not just invested, monetarily, but also like if you really believe that Bitcoin is important for your own life and those of others, and maybe for future generations, then it doesn't make any sense to take money out and put it into literal garbage. Why would you do that? That doesn't make any sense, right? And so all this marketing and propaganda and all these promises that are proposed by all these altcoins, like, it just doesn't make any sense in my eyes. So yeah, it's a pretty easy answer, I think. If there's Bitcoin, there's shitcoins, right? And there is hardly something in between, really hardly. And therefore, you have enough to do with Bitcoin anyways. I think that, sure, if you look at like, from a business perspective, obviously you can make a great deal of more money if you would be, reporting about Cardano and ADA and stuff like that. But again, we are playing the long game, and I think the trust that we gain long term, and also I think it's like the risk reward or the cost benefit analysis that you have to do is like, okay, so either you go agnostic and, you do all the shit coins, but what is the profile then? Then it's, just a really in my eyes, random. I mean, you could argue, okay, well, this is what the market is right now. No, it's not the market. It's just bullshit. And, the market obviously is rational, but, I have no interest in that. Like I'm not that type of guy. The upside or the big benefit that you get if you're Bitcoin only is, these people are actually, way more loyal, right? And way more helpful. Like to bootstrap a startup is incredibly hard and takes a lot of time. And the best thing that can happen to you is if you have a community from early on that supports you, right? And so the Bitcoin community is a internet community globally that shares this vision of, hey, I need Bitcoin in my life, and I think all my neighbors need the same. And that's why I commit, and that's why I support and work for it, right? And so this momentum is just so powerful around the world, and you can feel that, right? You can see that, you can feel that, like the way people are supportive of that. You don't get that with your Cardano, website, I think, right?
Yeah.
So not to offend anyone, but yeah. That's why I think it's actually a pretty easy and the name Bitcoin News, right? I mean, I think there's like websites like Bitcoin.com, and I like Bitcoin.com for the reporting because they have a pretty good news team, but I don't like sharing it, right? Because it's again in my eyes misguiding, and even in my opinion like risky to share it in a way. Like I think you don't want to do it really. And that's, there needs to be an alternative. And so the only thing there is like Bitcoin Magazine, right? So there should be another one.
Mm-hmm. I remember when Bitcoin Magazine made the pivot from covering all different cryptocurrencies to Bitcoin only. And I think their content has come up a lot as a result. And I used to write for them a little bit here and there, some op-eds, and they'd always ask you to put a conclusion at the end of like whatever the situation was meant for Bitcoin. And it was always fun to think about it and, just have that as the sole focus.
No, it's more than enough. It's so rich, there's so much you can there's no need. I think definitely it's like a monetary, question, but I think we're fine, and long term it's better for sure.
Yeah, that's always the trade off. It's like this circus, the Ethereum and all the consensus and all the other coins. They have so much marketing push behind them that they'll sponsor anything.
Yeah, we have to say it to a lot of marketing press.
Yeah,
but thankfully now, that's also a big difference. I think it's much easier now compared to like 5 years ago. Like there's so many, the industry is mature. There's so many brands now, and they are profitable, right? Like I remember, like some people said, like, oh yeah, Bitcoin is such a scam. You can tell because all there is really is like just hodlers, which is like a bubble, right? And then there is the economy, right? But it's really just Bitcoiners selling to other Bitcoiners, some crappy notes and some shit. And yeah, that was true basically, right? But the thing is now it's still like it's a growing economy, right? And there are like 5 different node, plug and play node providers and like exchanges en masse, and like it's so much bigger. So yeah, there's enough.
Yeah, that's good.
And it's still just 1%, consider, right? I mean, I don't know what global adoption is. So, it's still like super early stage. Why even, you don't even have to ask.
Yeah. And the loyalty aspect. The people that are just core Bitcoiners, I think they really appreciate having somewhere else that's focused just on that. Because it seemed like the whole industry got co-opted for a couple years with all those ICOs and everything like that. And it was like, oh gosh, are these like, that's what everyone was so attracted to that were coming into it. And it was just frustrating to see like they just fall for. I had so many people ask me about Ripple and like just friends family that reach out, they know I'm into Bitcoin, and then they're like, hey, I bought Ripple or something like that. And it's like, well, how did you end up there? But yeah, it's I appreciate anyway that you have the Bitcoin news.
Yeah, that's a problem, right? I mean, that is the big problem, and that is our mission: is that people are lost, and who can blame them if there's no financial education in schools? Most of the media, the mainstream media, is full of trash, and it's just really hard. And so people do just follow random people on Twitter suggesting to buy Ripple, for returns. People are driven by impulsive decisions and by human greed and stuff, and that's just human nature. So it just takes this education, it just takes this time until, to educate people, and people have to make mistakes even probably to learn. But that's what we were for, right? To just separate wheat from chaff, to, filter the noise, and just give them just Bitcoin news, right? Really just Bitcoin news, what's going on, good and bad, doesn't matter, just focus on Bitcoin. Right? And it's, in general, like if you have someone that says, I was just talking here to someone in the house, and she said, yeah, I work in banking and tech, and I consult this, 100 people team there with, whatever. And it was like, interesting. So what's your take on Bitcoin? She's like, yeah, no, I think there are these other cryptos and stuff, and, it will be regulated. And I'm like, yeah, well, sure, right. And people don't even understand Bitcoin yet have an opinion on everything, right? And so poor to think you know anything if you really don't. On the other hand, I met people and asked them, and they say, honestly, I don't know anything, And so that's, I think, what Bitcoin also does is like it humbles people, or it should humble you. And if you're not humble enough, you will make mistakes, right? And you will be easily misguided and fall into some pitfalls. And that's very interesting, that dynamic also, I think. I guess, I think the most important thing is that we educate. And I'm really glad that now there's enough material, like, again, compared to, early days. Like now it's really much easier. And still, there's also, in a similar way, there's much more noise and distraction. But it's definitely much easier. I think more people have it easier now to understand the fundamental thesis of Bitcoin, because there's just so much more momentum, and and the community is so much bigger. So that really helps.
Yeah, totally. And all the government printing, I think, has come into light, and it should have
The
been in,
Dogecoin printing.
shot in light. Yeah. Yeah.
The Dogecoin printing press
But
is on again.
yeah, yeah. So I think that just helps people understand, like, the difference of a finite supply versus, the money printer.
Yep.
And especially now they're starting to feel it, like in the, everything's doubled in price almost, or if it feels like it has, even though it's only supposed to be a 7% inflation. But
What do you think? Will it double again, everything, in the next 6 months or 12 months?
you know, I really don't know what's gonna happen. Like, it seems like they're out of options with, like, the printing isn't working anymore to keep things in control. But every store I go into has a, help wanted sign, and so I'm not understanding, like, what's going on with the like working class people. Like, they're not are they not working, or why are there so many shops that can't find staff? Like, have these people found jobs in crypto or something, and they don't want to work for minimum wage anymore? I think that could be a part of it, but it's just really bizarre. Like, the housing market being so expensive. Like, I just can't imagine that there's people that aren't having to work 2 or 3 jobs now at these, type of, like, gas stations and Subway restaurants and things like that to pay their rent. Because rent is, like, at least in Jacksonville, it's like almost, I think it's certainly double from where it was in, like, 2016, 2017. And even in the last year, like, the price of houses has gone up, like, probably 50% or something ridiculous. So I don't know what's going on with the economy. I can't make any sense of it, really. If it goes up another double, geez, that would be pretty terrible. But what do you think? Do you think it will? And then what? What happens then? Like, what happens if we get to that stage?
Yeah. I mean, historically, every paper currency has ultimately reached its original value of 0, right? And there. I think it's astonishing how long we already postponed the cleansing and a crash. I'm amazed by the talent of the central bankers to do that. But ultimately, I also fear that it just doesn't work, right? I mean, you can't raise interest, and then the only thing left is you have to do a monetary reset. Honestly, I think it's pretty clear that that's what the plan is for the next 5 years, to reset everything. And historically that there was always wars, and in these times when there was like a fundamental reset, right? But I mean, I have big hopes also, because now more people than ever have Bitcoin. I think the young generation is already exposed to it, and they're much easier to switch also. They have nothing to lose. And again, I think compared to other times, we just have so much infrastructure that we can, just use, that it really just takes this wake up call for people, I think, to realize that, they have to make a decision now. They can't just do nothing. It won't work. And I hope it's not as dramatic as it could obviously be very, very bad, right? I mean, if we think this through, then I don't know. You really don't want to live in a city.
Well, when you say a financial reset, I mean, the CBDCs come to mind. Like, do you think that could play into it? Like, they basically just roll out a new system, or?
Yeah, I mean, right. So if the financial system requires to print more money in some way or another, right, and the consumer price index is affected, at some point people won't be able to pay anymore, right? And so now they're already trying to cover these symptoms, right? So what's a stimulus check or paycheck? And now I think just recently they said, like, in California, they're going to send money for gas. I mean, since when is the government paying people to pay their gas, right? That makes no sense. So it's like food stamp for everyone, right? Like, so I think that is all. In my belief, there is a clear force to install this type of, utopian, technocratic, altogether like, new world design, right? So a social credit score,
a complete dependency.
Yeah, and UBI is nothing else, than severe, dangerous Marxist ideology, right? Like, it's against human nature to perform, to live, to have your own will. It's really quite the opposite. And you see, when we have UBI around the world, we have basic social welfare, and it's not good. It keeps people inside a box. They can't get out, and you should rather ask, why are they in this situation? Well, probably because the government destroyed all these jobs with all the overregulation, overtaxation, right? But again, I think so I can tell you a story from my grandmother from Germany, right? So she told me, I asked, how was inflation? Because in Germany we had like 3 times inflation too, almost like Argentina, right? Just in recent history, we're professionals with hyperinflation. So it's really fucking a scam, right? So she had savings on a savings account that was saved from her granddad or something for university, right? So he worked hard, saved the money for her daughter or granddaughter. And then one day to the other, the government decides, hey, we will devalue this now, and every German gets the same amount of money, which is 40 Deutschmark. So that was when the Deutschmark was introduced. Everyone got flat, the same. No regard to any balance you had. So like you had like 1 million or 100, like everyone gets the same. Complete scam, right? And so that's what people have to face. And I think things have been tested well enough in Cyprus and Europe. We had a cut on saving balances. ATMs in Greece were limited to 400 euros a week. And this can happen at any point in time. The money you have on your bank is not yours. Just read the T&Cs, right? It's not yours. You rent it, and they have and then it's like, it's secured to 100K, right? Yeah, what if the whole system fails, right? Like, what if this insurance fails? What you do then, right? So there is no security. I think the worst can happen at any day, and that's why people should actually look into Bitcoin and learn about it and have it, own it, right? Because it's money you actually own. You can verify that you own it, and it's super liquid and saleable and super transportable. You can take it anywhere. It's the best lifeboat you have. And I don't think it will get better for the foreseeable midterm future. It will only get worse. It already got worse. And people are still like, oh yeah, it's all right. But yeah, I think the tipping point is when the government has too many people that can't live and survive anymore. Then they have to print more money to support these people, so they shut up and go on the streets and riot, and that will require more money printing, right? And then at some point, even the government employees, which is like 10 to 20% of the entire population, won't be able to play this game anymore, and then it's kind of game over because they need these people because they support the whole system, and so they need to take care that doesn't erode or collapse. And usually when that happens, there's this power vacuum, right? And then maybe there's a big regime change also or a war to just make sure to have a controlled reset and like just create more chaos to install a new system or something like that. And I think that's what they're trying with the CBDC bullshit, although I think it's already decided that Bitcoin has won and all this bullshit will not succeed because people are already free. They are already on the other side in my eyes.
Yeah, I agree. Well, it's such a small, our communities are all these people that are interacting with Bitcoin, but out there it's such a small amount in the world, I guess. But I think the fact that it's available and
I
it's
don't know.
not
I think
stoppable.
I was just reading this book here, and I don't know if the data was right there, but they said like I don't know, like 30% or something own Bitcoin, like 20% of Americans have Bitcoin. I'm sure if this, I mean probably
wow.
I mean not real Bitcoin, IUs, right? So okay, IUs is
They
just
probably
like
have it.
yeah, but again, I think at least I think it's in my eyes, it's a gateway drug. I think it's not that bad to have pixels on Robinhood. It exposes you at least to the price volatility, and that's for me is an important sales mechanism. Because like it's so emotional and such a strong signal. So better have some Bitcoin virtually. Of course, the real deal is to have Bitcoin on your cold storage.
Although then that creates a whole other challenge of people losing their private keys. When I was working at Exodus, it was like
so.
I couldn't believe how many people would write in, and they're just like they just didn't understand that it was a custodial wallet, and they're like, where's my money? And we're like, well, we don't know. What did you do with your key you wrote down? But
no, you have to catch up. I think it's part of a sovereign life. It's part of a free life to just have these basic responsibilities. You got to drink, at least some gallons of water per day, eat food, eat proper food, eat good food, work out, know your laws, to some extent. And just like that, just you sign up for the best internet contract, well, you better learn about, self-storage, right? And self-custody. Just part of life.
So what, over the last little while, what have been like kind of your favorite news stories that you've reported on?
Yeah. I think, we're just getting started, right? So we got like 6 weeks now of content. It's a lot of fun. And, I love it all. We definitely like the small stories, Lightning text bot on Telegram, stuff like that. Or, all these, small niche subculture Bitcoin news. I like them. I think the best headlines are always when it's like about legal tender or like the big bangers. I think it's all about adoption, really. I think that's what people like to read. In our case, also people we have a lot of normie readers actually, because the site we took it over, right? So before there was another team working on it. It was started in 2018 already. But they had a completely different approach, with like blockchain and crypto and stuff like that. And so a lot of readers are still from back in the days, and they're more actually, normie readers. They're not orange pill, hardcore Bitcoiners. But then we try to expose them to the Bitcoin content, with kind of like a normal, not too crazy headline, but then give them the Bitcoin perspective, basically. And I think Nayib, obviously, El Salvador is always a great topic. I like the CEO stuff. So when there's an eBay CEO announcing, okay, we will build a digital wallet, I think that's interesting. And so also or Airbnb the other day, I think the Sam Altman, I think the founder, right? He posted on Twitter, hey, what would you like to see improved on Airbnb next year? And like the entire Twitter flipped up, was just crypto.
That's awesome.
And then he retweeted, and then he said, okay, look, people want crypto, right? So and then we call it Sam Altman may add Bitcoin and Lightning to Airbnb, right? Because crypto too, right? So that's how we do it. And I love these kind of news because, again, like if I compare to 2017, I think there was Dell once and Microsoft had Bitcoin in their store, I think, right? Just I don't know why, for testing, I guess. But now it's actually, it's getting maybe more realistic because they actually have so much user demand and it's an actual market force now, right? And I remember well when I had my first company, it was a juice company for organic wild herb juices in Berlin. And I spoke to Titus Gebel, who is the CEO of the Free Private Cities organization that built, gated private cities and stuff in free zones around the world. And we had a conversation. I asked him, like I'm a bit pessimistic about, the whole thing, like how, where the world is going. And he was like, Leon, don't worry, like the market always rules. Like the market is like the perfect democracy, basically. Like, look, we are now, that was like 2018 or 19 or something. Everywhere, oat cookies, right? Like, oat cookies didn't exist in supermarkets like 5 years ago, but all these hippies that want, like, gluten-free and sugar-free and oat cookies, they just called, and like a few years later, there were oat cookies in the supermarket shelves, right? Everywhere. And now you go to any small shop and they have like some sort of gluten-free, whatever. And the same also with my juice, actually. So we built this juice. We were the first one to have like cold-pressed, non-pasteurized juices in Berlin back in the days, and then a few years later, we failed with the business because it's super tough. But now it's in the shelves, like it's just everywhere. And so this is how it works,
laid
right?
the foundation.
Yeah, like whatever people want, it will happen, right? And eBay had a ton of NFT sales now, you can, think about NFTs.
I think I bought the first ever NFT on eBay.
Oh no, really?
The counterparty did it. We sold just for like an experiment, and I think it was the first one, but it's hard to verify.
Sense,
but
right?
we were playing this game, Bitcoin's farming, and one of the guys was selling a card, and we said, oh, let's just do it on eBay. So I bought it on there. It was probably, I think 2018 or something, but it was before all the NFT craze. It was just these Bitcoin NFTs, but but we didn't call them NFTs. We called them art. But anyway,
that's amazing.
Cool. But
now it's happening. Yeah. So that's what the CEO said, right? So they see this happening, so many NFT trades on eBay auctions, and why not serve that, right? Why not have a digital wallet? Why not make that better? Yeah, go for it, right? And then please add Bitcoin and Lightning too, because I want to sell my chair on eBay for Lightning.
Yeah, you should. eBay's been talking about accepting cryptos for so long, but yeah, it's cool that now it's actually happening. And what you said about the free market, that makes total sense. And that's always the case. I remember taking a statistics course like years ago, and they were talking about, every time we come up against the threshold of a resource, all these times in history that we've said, oh, we're going to run out of copper, we're going to run out of, whatever it is, human ingenuity just develops away and figures, an alternative that we can use to get it. And I think it will be no different. Bitcoin is that alternative with money.
Yeah, that's a good view, I think. Yeah, whatever problem we'll have, we're all gonna make it.
Yeah, we're gonna make it. GM. So you mentioned that you like writing the stories, or editing the stories of legal tender. Are you seeing a lot of traction in that area?
Yeah, first of all, small correction. I don't personally write too much or too well also. There are people much better with it. And we're actually also looking for writers, right? So, Sasha, you should actually publish whatever you have, send it over. And we're also looking for, editors and writers in general, like just write us. Legal tender. I think I think legal tender is not too bad because, again, I think the mass market, just like Alex Svetsky, right, has this theory of the remnant, and ultimately, the masses really don't matter. I agree to that extent that I think, most people prefer to continue to outsource certain big decisions, right? And if there is this mega trend for Bitcoin, for me, a government is just a gang of thieves, right? It's it's a criminal organization at the end of the day. But if it's run properly, like a service, like imagine a government would be run like a hotel, right? What's the best hotel? Four Seasons, whatever, Waldorf Astoria, right? Just every single detail works, eye for detail, and service culture, right? Thank you. Oh, great to have you here, right? So if you go into the US, first thing you see is the border control, right? In my eyes, the worst kind of people, right? Wrong position. I was there the other day, and I was like, hey, sir, excuse me, my passport is running out of papers. Would you mind maybe, putting the stamp there? And he was like, I don't know. He put it straight into a blank page in the middle, right? So, the poor guy, right? He sits there all day, bad light. I can understand that. He's frustrated. But, if that wouldn't happen in a private organization, right? If there's competition, it doesn't work. In El Salvador, you go at the airport, they're super friendly, right? And they wish you, and they ask about you, and they generally care. They have a warm heart, right? Complete difference. And so that's what I see with legal tender as well, that it's basically really just, if you look at it, a government from, private company perspective, it's really just like making a decision at the end of the day. Like, we implement payments here now. And so funny enough, in El Salvador, first of all, I think you have to give it to the president that the way the legal tender law was put in place, at least to my knowledge, is pretty fair in that sense that it allowed anyone to circumvent it. You're not technically forced to do it, right? Because a lot of Bitcoiners said, like, we're anarchists here. What the fuck? Why would you use power to force someone coercively to do something, right? It doesn't make sense. Correct, yeah, but the law was pretty well designed in that regard that, you don't have, it's literally impossible, and everyone in El Salvador knows it. Like, a street shop can't, they can't, they won't. But, and that's the interesting part to me, is that, like, all the corporates, they do it. They are very compliant, right? They follow the laws. They have a big IT department. They can roll it out in no time. So there's like all this very Americanized in San Salvador, right? There's like Wendy's, McDonald's, Burger King, Kentucky Fried Chicken, Taco Bell, all of them, right? And they have all Bitcoin. So that's pretty cool. And I think that really makes sense to have legal tender for that, to just tell all these corporates, hey, look, let's go, right? And is it a downside for anyone? I don't think so. I think it's just a decision. And, if the president can take it there, why not? I think it's all good.
Yeah, very cool. I wonder, I see a lot of the politicians in the US running on platforms of like, we're going to make Bitcoin legal tender in our state, or, and I saw Jerry Brito put out kind of an article. I love his writing from Coin Center. But he was kind of criticizing it a little bit. And then I emailed him. I've always been worried about legal tender coming into play, because then it would right now, a lot of states have these weird money transmission rules where you need a license. And as soon as Bitcoin's legal tender, I was wondering if it's going to create a situation where it automatically requires these money transmitter licenses to interact with it, where right now that's not needed, because they say Bitcoin, a lot of states, they just say Bitcoin's not money, so it doesn't fall under all these regulations. But and one of the problems with that would be that, any transaction over $10,000, you're going to need if it was legal tender, you're going to need a CTR, like a currency transaction report, that also requires knowing the social security number of the person that sent it. So, but Jerry's answer to me on it was that's probably already coming, like that they're just going to treat Bitcoin as a monetary instrument. There's already a bill in place. They tried to do it a year ago anyway, so it's probably not a fight that's going to win. But he didn't say this, but in my thoughts on it is like, well, if they know who you are, then they like, if you're operating on a platform, but if you're just sending peer to peer, that those requirements might not be as necessary to follow, like from one person sending to another. There's not really going to be a way to collect that CTR information. But
there's this chart, right? This meme, it's like, is this good for Bitcoin? And then like, yes, right? So I think whatever you do, if you use the word Bitcoin, if you put it in your mouth, it's good for Bitcoin. If you ban it, in my eyes, it's good. It doesn't really matter. I do see the risk, I think, for the consumers in that. I mean, I'm not really bothered because, as a digital nomad, I have a very optimized, tech setup, and that allows me to have like little exposure to all that crap. But yeah, I guess for people living there, it's much more tricky, and they actually have to think about it. But then again, I think it's like Bitcoin technologically is so well prepared to just circumvent any law and regulation, just like the internet, is like borderless. Bitcoin is, and people are going to go to El Salvador, and it's also like, just consider this. I mean, the reason why Bitcoin exists is, number one, because the economic mainstream system failed miserably, and it's very simple to explain, right? Like if you print money out of thin air, at some point you have to pay the bill. And similarly, right, the banks have been built this, oligopoly and like regulatory thick framework that nobody can deal with anymore. Like nobody wants. I mean, in Europe, maybe it's a little bit liberal, but in Europe, what's going on there, man? It's impossible, right? Like, and that's just socialism. That's what happens if you have central planning and too much government power and too much corporatism, really, right? And so that's why people use Bitcoin, because they don't need Venmo or PayPal to sign up, verify, and have like, some regulated freedom basically, or permission freedom. No, just send it. It's software. Boom. And that's what attracts people. And if you try to destroy that with regulation, I think you already failed before you even try. So they could try it, but I don't think it will help. It will maybe even just fire back entirely, and like people will say, it's fuck your money, right? So in multiple ways.
My favorite meme. There's a picture of someone like holding a fence as if he's like held in, but it's open on either side, and they're like, trying to ban Bitcoin.
Right, yeah.
You just can't.
Oh, with the bird on top? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm not too concerned. Yeah. I mean, we'll see. I think some bad things can happen. We'll see.
What do you think are like the biggest challenges to Bitcoin adoption over the next 5 years?
Never. I don't really think about it a lot. I think it's actually great the more challenge there is, because probably it would result in confusion and therefore cheaper sats, which just everyone appreciates in my eyes. So it's like these two forces, like you want to have it high, but you also don't say no to cheap sats.
Yeah, you still want to accumulate.
And then I think it's also like a generational thing. Like some people are, older than me, they would prefer go up faster. I'm like, no, I need to stack more. So it's really irrelevant, right? I think the biggest challenge is that, like, I think this regulatory, if the government, historically as we have seen it, if it unfolds its full force and becomes tyrannical, right, to a large extent than it is, we pray to God that might not happen, but it's already showing, right? Like with Corona, what they're capable of doing, not just especially like in regards to propaganda, right? And like a global mind control agenda, basically, right? And I mean, sure, I think we know historically, like it goes back actually to like since ever, right? So when Marco Polo went to China, that's what he wrote in his diaries, worth reading, that, it was under death penalty to have gold, and merchants had to give in the gold, and they got useless paper, right? So it's nothing new about that. And then, of course, 6102, I think it can and will probably happen that government at some point, the situation will get so much, there was so much tension in that, and people, and the government will blame Bitcoiner or the Bitcoin for all that misery that they produced, and then it's the same thing, that any IOU could be at risk of being seized to some extent, or taxed for sure. But on the other hand, again, from a market anarchy point of view, like, it's also so dynamic. Like, people are so much more internationalized, and like so many countries are competing now for capital and for business, and countries are more easy, or even I think even now with Corona, even big, old, or larger companies are seeing the need to become more agile in general. And I think all of that just helps to make the world more free, and also long term just reduce the negative impact of overregulation, bureaucracy, and big government. It's just useless. They're parasites. They don't need it. The market economy is perfectly fine without them. And Bitcoin is really that rocket that will lift us to the next level in regards to prosperity, freedom, and Kardashev civilization.
Very well said, Leon. Thank you. Yeah, I agree 100% there. Yeah, it's a really exciting movement to be a part of. And I know we're kind of pressing up on the time barrier, so where can people follow you?
Yeah, bitcoinnews.com, altogether, small letters, should redirect to our beautiful page with all our articles, hopefully with a piece of Sasha soon. And bitcoinnews.com is our Twitter handle, and I also run Bitcoin Club Malta on Twitter, so those will be the addresses. Yeah, if you want to, we're looking for writers and content always, and just reach out. We would appreciate it.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks, Sasha. It has been a great pleasure. Awesome time with you. Hope to see you soon in Miami.
Yeah, looking forward to it.